The stories you write have to be meeting your own emotional needs. Even if you're adapting a story, it has to be somehow related to your own personal experiences, because it has to unlock your heart. Because when you're writing when what you write is a way of unlocking your heart, then what you write is going to have an effect on other people's hearts. We have to write stories that people love. And I think if you want to write stories that other people love, you have to think about the stories that you love most. To do your greatest work, you have to look at the work that has had the greatest impact on you. And for me, aside from Batman, I think from a young age, the story that had a huge impact, the story that has had the earliest and biggest impact on me, as far as the power of storytelling, it's Star Wars. The first movie is celebrating its 45th anniversary this year, and through time, it's lost none of its power. It's still incredible. Now, George Lucas was heavily influenced by a Japanese filmmaker named Akira Kurosawa. Akira Kurosawa's movie Seven Samurai had a huge impact on George Lucas and many other filmmakers. But in regards to Star Wars, Kurosawa made a movie called The Hidden Fortress, and that movie had a huge impact on George Lucas's ideas for Star Wars. George Lucas is quoted saying, "Hidden Fortress was an influence on Star Wars from the very beginning." George Lucas had a 10-page treatment for a story titled Star Wars in May 1973, and the story was very influenced by the plot of Hidden Fortress. Hidden Fortress has a story that heavily involves the rescue of a princess, and there is a warrior-like character played by an incredible actor, De Niro and Daniel Day-Lewis level, Toshiro Mifune, who worked with Kurosawa in many movies. Toshiro Mifune said that as an actor, his most important work was what he did with Kurosawa. And in Hidden Fortress, he played a warrior with a lot of similarities to Obi-Wan Kenobi, a lot of similarities to Aragorn from The Lord of the Rings. Now here's the big thing. In Hidden Fortress, the story is told through the eyes of two peasants who are always bickering, always at each other. A big story about a civil war in Japan. And the story is told through the experiences of these two peasant characters who are always at each other. And it's a lot like C-3PO and R2-D2. Our entrance into the Star Wars story, we're following C-3PO and R2-D2. So those are the similarities. Aside from that, Star Wars does take on a life of its own. It does become its own thing, which is definitely... It's very clearly influenced by Hidden Fortress, but Star Wars definitely ends up having a life of its own. I think the most special thing about Star Wars is that ultimately it becomes a story about a father and a son. I think that's what makes Star Wars so special. This year Star Wars is celebrating 45 years, its 45th anniversary, and The Godfather is celebrating its 50th anniversary. Two very different films, Star Wars and The Godfather, but two films that have stood the test of time, and time has not taken any of their power. They're still incredibly powerful films. And I think it's not the only thing, but part of what makes these stories so powerful, so impactful, is that they're stories about a father and his son, or in Godfather, sons. And I think it's these simple ideas, these simple themes that bring vitality to a story, that make a story powerful and important. So powerful that it stands the test of time. And my hope for you is that you write a story that stands the test of time.